Ted, you did see that meeting tomorrow with the Botanical Garden is going to be changed, right?
I did. Thank you for.
Yeah. Stacy Johnson, who's the chair of that board, she is the head of government affairs for Hy-Vee and is wrapped up in vaccine related things and has to travel out of state. So
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So a whole lot of people got their first vaccination at Hy-Vee that aren't able to get their second one now because they don't have any vaccine.
Ooh.
Including my mother.
Our daughter got vaccinated on Saturday in California. There was a clinic that had vaccines that were expiring. And she loaded up her car. So 5 students rushed up to the site and got there 1 minute after they were supposed to close. But they were, as I said, they had about 50 vaccines to give out. And so they got their first vaccine.
Oh, good for them.
That's great.
Well, I have mine scheduled. I hope they have it when I get there. But
I know that's the worry now, Diane, is that,
yeah,
I know, I agree.
Mine is through Broadlawns.
Hopefully you'll be all right.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, so do we have, I'm looking here, see, make sure we've got everybody on. I don't see Andrea. Is Andrea on?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. You're invisible. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is the February 23rd edition of the Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting. We have a consent agenda that has minutes from the January 26th Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the February 2nd Planning Committee, the February 2nd Customer Relations Committee, financial statements, list of payments for January 2021, a summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and of course, the scheduling of our next meeting date for March 23rd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or things to add? Ted, board, anybody?
Graham, I would point out that our pilot payment is included in the list of payments this month for the board's information.
That is a good thing to remember. And we make that payment once a year, correct?
That is correct. The entire amount, which is about $1.3 million in January.
That is good to point out. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner?
Yes.
Bolton?
Yes.
Gillette?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Yes.
Moines?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so this is the point in our meeting for public comment, and this is time for anybody in the public that would like to comment on an item that may be on our agenda or may not be on our agenda. Is there anybody here outside of course, the appeal that is our first item that would like to talk on an item or talk to the board? I don't see anybody. Michelle, are you hearing from anyone?
I do not see anyone either. I do have the raise hand feature instructions in the chat if anybody needs that.
Perfect.
Still seeing none.
All right, well, let me know if you see a raised hand at some point, and I'll look for them too. All right, so we'll move on to our action items, section 3, and then section 3A is appeal of a leak adjustment at 13286 Northeast 56th Street. And I think the best thing here to do is just turn it over to you, Ted, and guide us through this.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. I think the board is aware that we have a customer appeal related to a leak. Amy Kaler has actually been working through this particular issue. And so I'm going to let her walk us through the situation, and then we'll have an opportunity for Dr. Menadue to share his perspective after Amy is finished. So Amy, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. Dr. Menadue gave us a call in October of 2020 and was concerned that he had high consumption at his property. And so we sent out a field technician to take a look and to see if we could find anything unusual. And our field technician did find Dr. Menadou's meters in a pit outside. So our field technician, was able to look into the pit and saw that the pit was filled with some water, and they found a leak at the outlet coupling. So basically the gasket or the washer in that coupling was leaking. And so our field tech installed a new gasket.
Can I ask a question real quick, Amy?
Yeah.
You said that's in a pit. The ones that I'm familiar with are, mine's not like that. So I guess I can't quite visualize what you're talking about. Is this something with like a cover on it?
Yes. So it almost looks like a manhole,
Okay.
And pits are required in some cases in our rules and regulations when there's a long service line. Because
Okay.
we don't want the possibility for a leak, on the outside of that service line before the meter.
Okay.
So does that answer your question, Graham?
Yes, it does.
Can you picture it?
Yep, I can. Thank you.
So our rules and regulations do provide for a one-time leak allowance for
Can
customers.
I back up here a minute, Amy? And whose responsibility is that?
The outlet coupling.
Yeah.
It's part of the meter. When we set a meter, we do install the outlet coupling. So I would say it's part of the meter. One thing that I will note is that we installed the meter in 2007. So, I've looked at consumption at the property. There were months of low consumption, which tells me that we didn't leave that meter coupling leaking when we installed it. And our records show that we have not been back to the property to interact with that meter setting. So I don't find that Des Moines Waterworks did anything to create that leak. Did that answer your question, Diane?
I'm still a little unclear on, there are parts of our system that it doesn't matter who did what to it, we're responsible. So is this one of those things?
I don't know that there is, I'm trying to think of a system component where that is true. We own the meter, but if the customer, just as an example, doesn't protect the meter from freezing, the owner would still be responsible for replacing the meter. So again, we do install the coupling when we set the meter. I consider it part of the meter setting.
So what you're saying, again, so I can visualize this, and I'm simple-minded, Amy, you know this. There's a pipe that comes in, it comes to the meter, and then there's a pipe that goes out to the property. And what we're contending here is that the pipe coming into the meter is our responsibility, and the pipe coming out of the meter is the property owners. Is that correct? And it was leaking on the property owner's side of the meter?
Correct. It was leaking after the meter. So the property owner owns the service line after the meter. To be very honest, I think who owns the coupling after the meter is a little gray.
And that's what was leaking.
And that's what was leaking. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So our rules and regs do provide for a one-time leak allowance, which we applied in this case. Many utilities, that I have been experienced with or, have communicated with over the years, most utilities, frankly, do not have a leak allowance, but we have long had a practice of allowing a one-time leak allowance. And our rules and regulations state that the leak allowance can be calculated based on the excess consumption beyond what the customer normally uses. And we will provide relief up to 50% of that. Okay, so our rules and regulations don't provide for 100% relief because we're still treating the water, incurring expenses. And so the rule allows for a 50% relief.
Amy, this is Rick Wong. Before we go further, I do want to draw everyone's attention to Sue Huppert's indication that she's recusing herself from participation in and consideration of this matter due to a connection to the appellant. If I got that right, Sue.
So staff did calculate the
Please
allowance.
confirm that. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rick, are you looking for
No,
confirmation? Okay,
no, I'm sorry. Sue did confirm that.
okay.
But not verbally, but I saw that she's.
Yes, you are correct, Rick.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting, Amy.
That's all right. Staff did calculate an adjustment based on the excess consumption used at the property at 50%. We did extend that adjustment beyond what is published in rules and regs. The rules and reg limits the allowance to 3 months excess consumption, but it does allow for more than that in unusual circumstances. And so we did calculate an adjustment based up to 4 months of excess consumption. So we did a little bit more than the rules and regulations outline. So that leak allowance for the excess consumption at 50%, what we calculated was about $2,003. And so we offered that to Dr. Menadue. Dr. Menadue stated he wasn't satisfied with that. And so our rules and regulations also provide for a process where a customer can request a customer appeal or a hearing meeting. And so Kyle Danley and Jenny Puffer and I met with Dr. Menadue in late November, I believe. And it was a virtual meeting, and he stated his position and, explained a little bit more about his perspective. But as Kyle, Jenny, and I spoke about it after the customer hearing, we didn't find that there was any comments or evidence that Des Moines Waterworks should be solely responsible for this leak. And we felt like the leak allowance as provided in our normal rules and regulations, or in our published rules and regulations, was appropriate. And so we sent a letter, which is included in your packet, stating that we upheld the original adjustment of $2,003. And Dr. Menadue responded and said he wasn't satisfied. And our rules and regulations also allow for an appeal to the board in that situation. And so he has asked to address the board related to this matter. One additional thing that I'll mention in his request to speak before the board, Dr. Menadue provided a billing ledger and is comparing 2019 billed amounts to 2020 billed amounts and calculated his request for relief based on that. But one thing I wanted to draw your attention to is those billed amounts do include rate adjustments and some other charges that are unrelated to the difference in consumption. And so those types of increases would not be eligible, in my view, for a leak allowance. If we calculate 100% relief, which is what Dr. Menadue has requested of the excess usage, then the requested waiver would be $4,503 roughly. So that is a little bit different than the dollar amount that you see in his correspondence, simply because of the additional charges.
Right, you're basing that on consumption as opposed to dollar amounts.
Correct, correct.
That's great. Thank you for that, Amy. Dr. Menadue, would you like to address the board?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. First off, thank you for all your time. This isn't the most important issue in the world, but it was brought to my attention after a sustained trend of overuse. And there's only 2 people in this house. So we started to look into it. And that's when we started to compare 19 to 20 and found that there was about a $5,000 difference in billing And we thought that was pretty substantial for water. And that's when I think I first contacted Waterworks, and frankly, they were very helpful, and we do participate in home serve. And so we had Torgerson come out and he identified the leak. His explanation to me was a little different. He thought the coupling was equipment that Des Moines Waterworks owned or responsible for. And his comment to me was, well, there's no way the consumer would ever know that this happened because your water line is a good ways away from the home. In addition to the variance, the excessive use of water for that period of time, almost all of 2020, there's a lot of damage out there too that has to be repaired in the landscaping because it sits behind a treat area. And with that much water flowing out there freely for quite a long time, that all has to be repaired also. So, I was really just kind of looking for some fairness. I thought that the offer was a little low because, that equipment isn't something that a normal consumer would monitor on a regular basis and say, okay, it's working or it's not, or I have an issue, and be able to intervene and mitigate their damages. And like I said, we didn't really start to figure it out until I saw the bills on a consistent basis being quite high. I mean, even they've stabilized now. So I think that we have it under control. There's still some concern that with 2 people in the house, we're having a $400 a month water bill, but much improved. So we're not complaining about that. So it's just a matter of trying to resolve this outstanding issue. And that's why I appreciate and ask for a board audience to kind of have one last look at it and see if there's something more reasonable we could arrive at.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Menadue?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what's written here and what's happening. So did you were noticing a continuous increase in your bill January through October, and had somebody come out to look at the meter last fall?
I believe it was the end of the summer, early fall, when it caught our attention, and my accounts payable department, brought it to my attention, said, we'll put together a report and we'll see what the trend is. And then when we validated the trend, virtually every month was higher, most of them substantially, than the prior year, same month. And that's when it kind of caught because there's nothing else difference in the water consumption. If anything, it's less.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
But the amount, can I ask a question? The amount that we're talking about here, is it 4 months?
The amount that we've offered, Diane, is half of the value of the difference in consumption for 4 months.
And Dr. Menadue wants the entire amount for 4 months, is that correct?
I believe it's for a longer period of time.
We trended year over year, so 19 versus 20. But, to be honest, it looks like there's 6 months out of that 12 that really, really stand out, clearly way over months where it was almost double the prior year, or more than that, actually, from June through October. Actually, May, it starts in May. So May through October of 2020 is when we really started to have the excess consumption of water.
So Dr. Menadue, the Des Moines Waterworks staff has recommended an adjustment of $2,003.49. What amount are you proposing?
Well, like in the write-up here, it says the consumption only related difference is $4,503.80. I'm willing to do anything reasonable. I mean, if you want to split the difference or something, I don't want to beat this to death, but I just thought the 2,000 was very, very light. And to better understand really who's responsible for that equipment, I've heard a number of times that, well, we haven't been out there since 2007. Well, that's really not my issue. I mean, it's the equipment of Des Moines Waterworks. that you have to assure is functioning properly. And I don't know the whole argument about the coupling on which side it's on. But when we had HomeServe come and Torgerson does a lot of work for you, I mean, his position was very clear that, that's a waterworks issue, and they repaired it and did a wonderful job. And it seems to have stemmed the recurrence of the issue that we were having. So we're pleased with that, but just wanted a better remedy, I guess, for the damages that we have. And there are additional that I'm not asking for, with the landscape repair and
Sure.
the hole that we have to repair out there and things like that. But I don't expect you to make me whole on that.
Sure. So here's the way I see it, and somebody on the board correct me, but there's like two issues here. One is the immediate issue, and that is a motion to either uphold or increase the staff recommendation on the amount. But the second issue is, we can discuss either now or later, would be kind of determining that gray area that Amy pointed to, and that is this coupling and whose responsibility, and how we make that clear to customers that have such coupling or such couplings. But that's not immediate. What I am looking for is, or what I would need, is a motion to either uphold or uphold the staff recommendation of $2,003.49 as an adjustment to Dr. Menadue, or another motion for another amount.
I'll make a motion that we uphold the staff calculation, just so we can get a motion on the table to begin discussion.
So the staff recommendation of $2,003.49,
Yeah.
and I believe I heard Joel second that.
That's right.
Are there comments or thoughts about this?
Ted or Amy, can you kind of reiterate the philosophy behind the 3-month policy? I suspect there's kind of a notice issue going on here where, homeowners have a duty to notice, drastic changes in their water bill. And we give them in my mind, pretty gracious 3-month period to take note of that and report it to us. And our, compensation will cover a portion of that period. I'd want to hear you kind of discuss that a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, Joel, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The 3-month window is really our attempt at fairness. Sometimes leaks start fairly slowly and people don't notice them right away in their billings. But in our experience, after 2 or 3 months, typically people notice that there's a leak and they contact us and we can make it work out. So the 3 months is our attempt to give folks the opportunity to notice that there's a leak and to contact us and to get it resolved. And hopefully the majority of the overage happens during that period of time. In this case, it appears that may not have happened. And I think that's probably is the case, but the other side of that coin is we have absolutely no way to notice that the consumption is unusual. So we're trying to provide the customer an opportunity to notice and contact us, and that's what the 3 months is really about.
I'm thinking of a scenario if you had an absentee property owner who, let a leak go unattended to for months or years and then tried to hold us on the hook for that water because they failed to, take notice of what was going on with their property. I think that seems to be the philosophy behind the policy.
I think that's where we're at. Joel, Amy, do you have a different perspective there that you could share?
I don't. That's really why we do have the 3 months is, any relief that we do provide, all customers are paying for in a sense, because we're not recovering the cost of water. So, we want to encourage leaks to be reported as quickly as possible.
So, Amy, I have a question. One is, and I'm sorry, Joel, were you done?
Please go ahead.
So the appeal committee went not to 3 months, but to 4 months. Is that correct?
The initial staff who calculated the adjustment actually started with 4 months. We offered 4 months from the outset. And then the appeals committee upheld that. So the appeals committee didn't change anything.
So that would be based on unusual circumstances, correct?
Correct.
And what were those unusual? What did the group find were the unusual circumstances?
Just the extent of the leak. You know, there was 48,000 cubic feet, I believe, if I have my number right here. 24,000, I'm sorry, just in October. And I think in that whole time period, it was double that. So it was really just a product of the amount of consumption that we were talking about. And the fact, frankly, that the pit is outside. You know, there were just a lot of factors that play into that, that it allowed us to go the additional month.
So I have a quick question about HomeServe, because HomeServe was involved here. If the leak were clearly not at the coupling, but in the line into the house, HomeServe would cover the repair of the line. They would not cover the leak. Is that correct? Or the consumption during the time?
Correct. HomeServe does not cover the consumption in any case. They repair the leak itself.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Andrea, do you have any further comments or questions?
Yeah, I guess I'll just put it out there that I appreciate both items that Joel and Diane pointed out. One that, you know, there is a fair amount of time that customers are given to discover the leak, and the fact that you know, regardless of whether or not this was covered by HomeServe, the consumption wouldn't be covered. Those are both points that I think are important to acknowledge. I guess I'm struggling with the question of whose responsibility is the coupling. I know that seems like such a small piece of information, but it seems to be a key piece of information here. Trying to figure out a way to be fair to address both, you know, trying to find a fair solution here. And I was trying to do some math on my own, thinking, okay, what if we looked at covering, you know, 100% for the 3 months? What would that look like? Because that allows us to keep within something should have been noted within those 3 months. But there's this question of whose machinery or whose responsibility is it? I don't know if that's where I'm landing, but I just want to share some of the thoughts that are going through my head with the rest of the board, and see if they have any similar thoughts or questions along those lines.
100% of 3 months is what dollar amount? Did you figure that out?
I don't know if I did, because I was using the 4 number.
Well, I was just trying to come to a number. I mean, we're at the $2,000 number, and Dr. Menadou's, or the other number, was $4,503.
So the $2,000 number, though, is for 50% of 4 months. I'm not sure how much
100% of 3 months would be.
Yeah.
Amy, do you know what that number would be?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to pull up some information and calculate it.
Okay.
I don't know if this is any help, but if you take the $2,000, which was 4 months, and divide that by 4, the additional month might be $500, just on a mathematical basis.
And if we wanted to go that route, I don't know that we'd have to figure out the dollar amount right now. We could have staff figure out the specific months, because it might make a difference which month we're counting, if the point is the, you know, time of notice. Ted, could you maybe, I think this may have been touched on, but you or Amy talk about what duties a property owner has, if any, as to the meter. Or is that all within our purview?
You know, the property owner, generally speaking, and I have to say generally speaking, because in the rural system, there's a little bit of difference, but Amy, you can keep me on track here on this particular account, but generally speaking, the property owner would own the water service line and the meter pit. And Des Moines Waterworks owns the meter. So that is our meter. We own it. We install it. We installed it several years ago. And, you know, we may ask the customers to take responsibility for protecting the meter. So for example, if the meter freezes and bursts in someone's home because they, you know, haven't kept their crawl space warm or something like that, then the customer is responsible for repairing and replacing that meter. If the meter is destroyed by construction or something like that, I mean, the customer's responsibility for the meter is to protect the meter. But we own it, we install it. We did install this meter. We would have installed that coupling, but we installed it many years ago and it was serviceable. The question that we have is, you know, what happened in the interim? What caused this coupling to leak? It's pretty unusual for one of these couplings to leak, you know, a decade later, or however long it was. Amy, did you say when we put the meter in?
2007.
Okay, so more than a decade later, it's unusual for them to just start leaking, and we don't know what happened. We have no idea, but we weren't out there. So, you know, that's where we get into this. Well, let's, you know, try to set up a fair system for making an allowance. You know, it appears to me, based on Rick's quick math, that 100% of 3 months would be around $3,000. It appears that the overage was about, the extra consumption was about, at 50%, about $500 a month, or a total of about $1,000 a month. Just to clear up that math question. But did I answer your question, Joel?
You did, thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion and a second. If I'm not trying to wrap this up or hurry anybody, if you know, if Andrew, if you're interested in making an amendment, now's your time. If not, I will. We can take a vote.
Making amendment would have to be agreed upon by Diane, who proposed it.
Correct. Correct.
Would you, Diane, would you be open to an amendment to look at the 100% for 3 months? It's okay if the answer is no.
I know, I'm so torn. You know, I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say no because I see responsibility on both sides,
Sure. Yep.
and that's why.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or thoughts? Clarifications. And so, to be clear, we have a motion to uphold the staff calculated leak adjustment based on rules and regulations of $2,003.49. Hearing no other comments or questions, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Holton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 3B. 3B is to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for strategic planning facilitation. Sometimes that word is tricky.
Graham, before we move on, I think we might want to announce that the staff recommendation was upheld and the appeal denied based on that vote.
So understood.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this is the HDR Engineering Strategic Planning Facilitation Contract. Ted, why don't you give us a brief explanation about this? I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yes, indeed, Graham. During the budgeting process, we talked about having a facilitated strategic planning process in 2021. Jennifer, Terry, and I visited with 6 different firms who provide that kind of service. We narrowed it to 3, requested proposals from those 3. A staff committee, as you can see there, reviewed those proposals and selected HDR Engineering, and we would recommend that the board authorize us to enter into a professional services agreement with HDR to complete that facilitation.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for strategic planning facilitation in the amount of $99,934. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any comments, questions, thoughts on this item?
Ed, I might show some ignorance here, but how common is it for us, and maybe this is mostly with kind of professional services contracts, but to put out an RFP with a maximum dollar amount? I mean, it came in right at the top dollar, and that's not surprising considering we said at the outset what our top dollar is. So I'm not surprised it's just barely below that.
Right, Joel, it's not incredibly common, but in this particular realm, there's such a breadth of options for what can be done in terms of facilitating a strategic plan. They can have endless stakeholder meetings. They can do customer surveys that in and of themselves would cost $100,000. And so in this case, it was very important for us to not only give them the scope of what we wanted, but our budget. Because I think, and in fact, one of the consultants even responded to us that they felt like our scope was bigger than our budget. And we told them that the budget was more important than the scope. They needed to tell us what they could do within our budget. So it is unusual, but for this particular instance, it was important because I think we ran the risk of having one or maybe no proposals that were under or within our budget. As it was, we got 3 proposals that were $99,000, which is exactly what we expected would happen. But we got 3 proposals that we could afford, and we got to choose based on the consultant's approach and their team and things that were important to us. So unusual, but I think appropriate in this case.
Framed in that way, it makes a lot of sense. Here's our budget. Who can give us the most for it? So
Exactly.
thank you.
Right. Yes.
Any other thoughts or questions on this item? Ted, you're satisfied with this team that they're going to do what needs to be done?
I am, Graham. I'm excited. In fact, HDR has done our long-range planning work in the past. We had other great proposals too, but I am confident that they will do a nice job.
Nice. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item 3C. This is the acceptance of the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant RO Unit Number 4 installation. Ted?
Yes, Graham, you will recall, many of you, that we had a presentation on this project at the January Planning Committee meeting just very recently. The project is done and in service. There are a couple of small change orders on the project, but Waldinger did a nice job for us, and we would recommend that the board authorize us to accept the project.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept Saylorville Water Treatment Plant RO Unit Number 4 installation completed by the Waldinger Corporation in the amount of $549,336.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on item 3C? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Yes.
Hubbard, Munns.
yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Item 3D is a request permission to establish the date of public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company electric easement at Nolan Standpipe and Pump Station as the date of the March 2021 board meeting. Ted, comments on this item?
This is very straightforward, Graham, a very small easement outside the fence at our Nolan Pumping Station facility. Mid-Am needs to set an above ground junction box there. Not for our purposes, for their purposes. They're going to pay us $1,000 for our administrative costs associated with granting the easement. We would recommend the board set the public hearing for next month.
So moved, and I apologize for the dog barking. I'm looking for a motion to establish the date of the March 2021 board meeting as the date of the public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company electric easement at Nolan Standpipe and Pump Station, and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Actually,
So
that was actually the
Second.
action. Yes. The dog distracted me. Any comment or questions about this item?
I am just curious if the neighborhood association will be made aware, or how we would make people in the area aware of what's being done on this, and if it would have any kind of disruption to the neighborhood.
Well, it's not our project, Sue, I guess. So we were not planning to communicate with the neighborhood association about Mid-Am's project. We certainly could or ask them to do it, but it's a project that isn't associated with our facilities. It's just that they need a piece, a corner of the lot to set this box on. So
Is it going to be very disruptive?
Let me chime in here, Ted.
thanks, Mike.
The infrastructure we're talking about here is no more obstructive or intrusive than a transformer, a small transformer. I think this enclosure is actually smaller than a transformer, and there will be. We're not the only property impacted. Mid-Am is trying to install a number of these, probably distanced by maybe 1,000 feet, I think is what I remember. So there'll be more than just one of these. So I doubt they're gonna have much objection, but we have not reached out to them in this case.
The only reason I bring it up is sometimes people are touchy, as we know, about transformers and microwaves, and we've heard all of this at board meetings before. It would be simple enough to simply contact the neighborhood association and make them aware that Mid-American has contacted us, and then at least we have done our due diligence, I would think. But just as an idea, the board may not agree with that, but I just think it's always good to keep the neighborhoods aware of what we're doing.
Good point. I'll have Bob reach out, Ted, and he's got a picture of what this thing looks like. So I think he can send them a quick note of this is what's planned and proposed. And if there's any serious objection, they need to let us know immediately.
We can coordinate with Mid-Am too, Mike. They may have done some of that kind of outreach
Okay.
already. We just be sure that it's happened one way or the other.
Very good.
Points. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions on item 3D? Hearing that none, I will, there goes the dog again. I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
We didn't hear you, Sue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. That
Graham, your
item-
dog is probably enjoying the fact that people are walking and,
That's
you know,
exactly the thing.
it's so gorgeous out there. I don't blame him. He finally has company.
He's been out in the sun, and Katie took him to the dog park a little while ago, and so he's like a kid. He's whipped up now, and he rarely barks, but today I think he's happy with the weather like the rest of us. So thanks for your tolerance of that. Item 3E is request authorization to solicit bids for the 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1, East Pleasant View Drive and East 17th Street, and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2021 board meeting. Ted?
Graham, this is our first water main replacement contract. Maybe our only standalone water main replacement contract this year. We shall see. We're doing a lot of other work, as you will see shortly, with the city. This is a standalone water main replacement contract, a couple of streets here in Des Moines that we're replacing due to age and breaks. And we would ask that the board authorize us to solicit bids.
So this motion is to authorize staff to solicit bids for the 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1, East Pleasant View Drive and East 17th Street, and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2021 board meeting, and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
All right, moving right along to item 3F, request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocation for Fleur Drive reconstruction from George Flagg Parkway to Watrous Avenue, Phase 1 northbound lanes project. Ted, I think we're all looking forward to more work on Fleur Drive. So go ahead.
Yes, aren't we all? The next phase will be easier for us, I will say, but the board actually approved this reimbursement all the way back in February of 2019. But this was a tough project, frankly, tough for the city, tough for Des Moines Waterworks, in addition to being tough for the traveling public. And so we wanted to bring it back and reauthorize this because we had to do some additional work. A couple of key points here. Initially, we were going to start just south of the intersection of Bell and lay all the way to Watrous. When we started right at the beginning of the project, we got into that intersection and determined that it would be in everyone's best interest if we actually replaced all of the water main in the intersection of Bell Avenue. So we did that. There was some fairly significant costs associated with that. It also really slowed down the project. You'll probably all remember that the intersection of Bell was closed for much longer than they had said it was going to be. That was due to the additional water main construction that was required because of the depth, the age, the condition, the proximity to a large underground duct bank, a number of issues. Then as they started moving to the south with the pavement and the water main, we experienced a fairly significant water main break that caused a lot of disruption to the project, more delays. We made the decision that we needed to begin abandoning that water main as we went so that we didn't have more very disruptive water main breaks, but that also added cost. After all that disruption and delay, when we got to Park Avenue, we did make the decision that we would, as they were paving between Park and Bell, we would continue to push the water main to the south to get ahead of the project to avoid additional delays and confrontations or conflicts between the water main construction and the city project. But we did have to put some temporary surfacing over that, temporary pavement over that trench after we laid the water main. There was some cost there, but likely less cost than we would have incurred had we continued to try to work with them and had the breaks and all the other kinds of issues that we had. At the end of the day, you can see a breakdown of all of the costs, but all of that additional cost over those 2 years was about $412,000. Still
For the additional items.
in additional cost. Yeah, the
Okay.
original, based on the original quantities in the city's contract, our cost was going to be $1.3 million. The additional cost for Bell Avenue, abandoning as we went, pushing ahead, and then putting the temporary surfacing down, and then a number of other smaller things that we can get into if anyone is interested, but the additional cost was $412,000. So we're back today asking permission to reimburse the city $1.7 million for the new water main that was installed on Fleur Drive from Watrous through the intersection of Bell Avenue.
Okay, so the motion that I will suggest here in a second is the dollar amount that's related to this is $1,700,032. $1,732,736.09, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So the motion I'm seeking is to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for Fleur Drive reconstruction from George Flagg Parkway to Watrous Avenue Phase 1 northbound lanes project. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on item 3F?
You know, I want to compliment Des Moines Waterworks. I drive that every single day. And I know it was painful on Thomas Beck when there were issues on Thomas Beck. But I have to say, if I was relieved that part of this work was being done during the pandemic when traffic was down and we weren't having to be concerned about, you know, that morning rush hour and safety considerations. But it's beautiful. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So anyway, compliments to everyone. I'm sorry it came in over, but I think as always, you did it the right way, abandoning the old and putting in a new. So well done.
The most beautiful and gorgeous parts, Sue, are what's underground, and that's the new main that we're paying for.
That's right. You know, another point, just very quickly, we did get irrigation in all the medians as part of this construction, working with the city, which is a beautiful thing.
That's a great thing. Where is that? Where's that irrigation controlled?
You know, there are a couple of places. One of them is down near Grays Lake Park. And then there's one in an island. There's a street that goes off to the east of Fleur Drive, just north of Park Avenue that I can't remember the name of. But there's an island right in that intersection, and there's another controller there. So there's a couple of places.
Are those operated by timers or remotely, or?
They're pretty sophisticated. They are all on a timer system, but they are also remotely controlled. So if they want to change the timers, they do that. They can do that remotely, and the city will have a control of that, as I understand it. And we will work with them. Jessica Barnett worked with the city to choreograph that entire installation, and we'll work with them on making sure things get irrigated properly.
Does that irrigation system have a meter?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Slight digression. Do we know if the change in traffic behavior throughout the pandemic has provided us any cost savings or mental health when we're out doing these projects, that there hasn't been as many commuters on the road?
You know, I'm going to just speak circumstantially here, Andrea. I don't have any scientific data, but as you know, we hired a contractor to do the maintenance on Fleur Drive this year, and we directed them to do much of the significant maintenance and planting on the weekends. But we had 0 complaints, as you heard from Jessica. And I think part of that is the layout of the plan that engineering and grounds did, you know, pushing that work to the weekends. But I think part of it was just so much less traffic on Fleur Drive. So That's anecdotally, I would say, yeah, we've had some relief on Fluor Drive at least. I don't really know. I don't know, Jenny, your folks are out in the street all the time. Have they noticed the reduced traffic when they're trying to do maintenance and repairs out in right of way? No, I don't hear Jenny, but that's the best I can do for you, Andrea, is just
Yeah, no, that's great.
anecdotal.
Just, trying to find some silver linings in the pandemic. And there have been some interesting ones that I've heard, and just, curious if we could appreciate any as well with the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I haven't heard one way or the other. I'm sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that.
Jenny
have a
just chatted that
comment.
her microphone is not working, so.
Okay, thanks, Jenny.
Any other comments or questions on item 3F? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to item 3G. This is the request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for Ingersoll Avenue streetscape from 28th Street to 24th Street, Phase 2. All of my favorite street projects are coming up tonight. Ted?
Yeah, well, this has been a good one. I'm sure, Graham, you're well familiar with the first phase of this project that was completed this year. This is, as I understand it, an extension further to the west of the Ingersoll Avenue streetscape, and we are going to replace about 1,400 feet of water main included in the city's contract, which will be let this spring, and we're requesting that the board authorize staff to reimburse the city for that work once it is done.
So this is what I'm seeking is a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the Ingersoll Avenue streetscape from 28th Street to 24th Street, the north side. This is the Phase 2 project. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions about item 3G? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
All right, moving on to 3H, which is going to sound a little bit familiar. This is request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for Ingersoll Avenue reconstruction, Polk Boulevard to 42nd Street. This one literally hitting close to home.
Yes, indeed. This is a little further west, as you know, Graham, and it's not part of the streetscape project. It's just reconstruction of the road there. Apparently, we are not replacing the entire main under this contract. We're replacing a couple of segments of some 1916 cast and some 1903 cast. So some pipe that has really put in its time. But same concept here. Our work will be included in the city's contract, and we're asking the board to authorize staff to reimburse the city for those water main alterations once the work is complete.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the Ingersoll Avenue reconstruction, Polk Boulevard to 42nd Street project. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this item? Not hearing any. I'll add is that this will disrupt my morning walks with my dog, but that's okay. I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
All right. Item 3H passes. Item 3I is request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for the Hamilton Drain Storm Sewer Improvements Phase 1. Ted?
Graham, this is a large storm sewer project that the city will be completing on East Shawnee Avenue, and there are two places where this big box will cross existing water mains at Amherst and at North Union. This is an alteration project. Not a large scale main replacement, but alterations to accommodate the new storm sewer. Yet again, same thing, will include our plans in the city's plan set. We're asking the board to authorize staff to reimburse the city for those alterations once the work is complete.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the Hamilton Drain Stormwater Improvements Phase 1 project. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this item? 3I. I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes,
Hubbard,
yes,
Muns.
Yes.
that item passes. Moving us to item 3J, and this is request permission to establish the date of the public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company underground electric easement at Northwest 26th Street Booster Station as the date of the March 2021 board meeting. Ted?
Graham, this is yet another easement to Mid-Am. In this case, though, this is for our purposes for electrical service to our new pumping station there on Northwest 26th Street. A loop feed, power entering and exiting the property. Mid-American needs an easement to install their facilities on our property because this is our facility and we'll be receiving benefit. There's no payment that we will receive for this easement. We'll give them this easement to locate their facilities for our use. And we are asking that the board establish a public hearing for granting that easement in March.
Okay, a motion to establish the date of the March 2021 board meeting as the date of the public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company underground electric easement at Northwest 26th Street Booster Station and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments on this item? I will have my public hearing document ready for March after all of this month. Any other comments or questions on item 3J? Michelle, please record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes,
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item, okay, so this is going to move us to 3K. And I wonder, this is a possible closed session. Would it make sense for us to give our board and committee reports first so that when we come out of the closed session, we just can basically adjourn? Would that make sense with everybody? I'm seeing a few people nod, so I'm just going to do that.
absolutely.
I was
All right,
thinking-
No reason for staff to wait around, absolutely.
I'm going to skip item 3K and move into item 4 to board and committee reports. Planning committee.
Yes, so we met, for those that were not able to join that call, we had Jen on to share with us our water quality initiatives, and I encourage everyone that has not already heard those to touch base with her. I'm very excited about everything the work that she's been doing with Melissa and Ted to jumpstart our water quality priorities and the legwork to start making a difference in our watershed. So thank you all for your work on that.
Excellent. Was there a finance and audit committee meeting? Is there something to report there?
Nothing to report. We didn't have any items, so we decided to forego a meeting this month.
You're doing a fine job as chair of that committee so far.
You know, really putting in the hours.
Customer Relations Committee.
Nothing new to report here that
Great.
everyone's not aware of.
Great. I have nothing new with the Bill Stowe Memorial. I will say from the Botanical Garden Board, the Botanical Garden is entertaining 2 finalists for the CEO position this week. One was in today, and one will be in on Thursday. So I would expect a decision on the new CEO there pretty quickly. And they seem very happy over there with the candidates. So anything from the Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation Board?
I'm just going to point out that they are going through their strategic planning process as well, trying to make the shift from being a construction entity to a kind of more of a programmatic long-term entity, and also give Mike the opportunity to add anything if he would like to point anything out at this time.
I'll just offer on the side that we talked about some closeout documentation associated with phase 1 and some adjustments to the O&M 2080. Mr. Malm and I are working on those and hope to have those back to the board through the foundation board probably within the next month. So just update on that.
You know, and actually there's one other thing that I wanted to point out that came out of kind of some of the strategic planning discussions was the Waterworks Park Foundation looking to have a closer relationship with the utility. Not quite sure what that looks like, but something to be aware of as we move forward, that there might be more coming to the board as we just figure out what that looks like in the future.
Interesting. All right. Next, I have 4B, which is staff updates, external affairs. This is Jen's area, I believe. Jen, do you have something to bring to us at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I'm going to do a really quick legislative update today. So just to let you know, we're watching 37 bills and companion bills right now that are moving their way through the House and Senate at the State House on a variety of issues. And we met with Senator Rosenboom last week, who is the head of the Agricultural Appropriations Committee. And we spoke with him about some of our legislative priorities. We had a really great visit with him. So we will move on to Senator Sweeney next week. She's the head of Ag and Natural Resources with some of our priorities. So just keeping an eye on a lot of different bills right now. If you have any questions, let me know now or shoot me an email and I can explain more. So thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Jen. Ted, time for your CEO and general manager report. You can give an update on Arizona later.
That is fair, Graham, given the time. I will touch base on COVID very quickly. Not a lot has changed in the last month. The office remains closed. We did have week before last 7 employees test positive all in 1 week. Our first transmission at work, that has thankfully settled down, and those folks are now back. I think all of them are back, and we're in much better shape after one sort of nerve-wracking week. We did have 15 main breaks, water main breaks over the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So our crews were not only exposed to extreme temperatures earlier in the week, but then they were really working hard over those 3 days to repair 15 water main breaks. We continue to work with West Des Moines on their water use permit. I think we have come to an agreement in principle on that I look forward to sharing with the board once we get that hammered out. And the last thing I wanted to make the board aware of is that we have had a request from a park neighbor to reinstitute the urban deer hunt in Waterworks Park, which has been suspended since 2013, and our numbers have effectively quadrupled since then. And so we've had a request. We'll be doing some due diligence there and looking into that. And
is that request, who's that request coming from?
A park neighbor, a resident who lives to the north of the park.
Well, that's interesting because I had on my agenda to talk to you at some point, Ted, that very item. I know that the Miles Mills Rose Garden at the Art Center, there's been discussion about deer in there. And again, now my dog's been mentioned a lot in this meeting today, but we do walk a lot in Greenwood Park, and I can tell you the deer are thick because he often takes off after them.
Right. Well, we have noticed higher numbers. I can't say that we've noticed a lot of damage. I think there's a balance there that we'll want to consider. We did have a number of complaints from park patrons and even some park neighbors about the deer hunters.
Well, and then they, correct me if I'm wrong now, the city does allow some of that in Greenwood Park and Ashworth, around Ashworth Pool. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, Graham. At least they did at one time. I haven't been as close to it since 2013 because we have not been participating, but they allow it around the airport. They allow it out near the county soccer complex. They allow it in a number of sort of more wooded, large space park areas in the city. And they would, Polk County, not the city, but Polk County would really like for us to become part of the program again.
So that's something you'll bring back to us later.
Yes. To just make you aware that the request has been made, and would welcome any feedback from the board on perspectives there, but something we will be considering.
As part of your due diligence, will you be reaching out to the Park Foundation just to at least make them aware so the various programmatic things that they're planning aren't impacted or are being planned around the realization that there might be hunters out there?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrea. In fact, Mike and I met with the Park Foundation leadership, Sam Carroll and Amy Jennings, this week, and I did bring that up to them, that there's been some question, interest shown by both the city and one park neighbor, a resident. They were appreciative of knowing that. They also mentioned their appreciation for the connection that I think you made between them and Jennifer Terry, so they could talk about water quality priorities and how they might fold that into their mission. And Jen also mentioned that she appreciated that connection and some others that you have made for her with Iowa Natural Heritage and whatnot. But yes, indeed, we will work with the Park Foundation and keep them up to speed on what we're thinking.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's it for me, Graham.
Great. So that would be, there's contract status and professional service agreements are attached here. I don't really want to point to it, but it's nice to see a 0 over in the recordable injuries so far. I realize it's earlier in the year, but that's nice.
Agreed.
So that's for our regular meeting. Now, it's been proposed that we go into a closed session, and after some discussion on this, I know it's important to a lot of us that we go into a closed session for appropriate reasons. And what's being what we hope to discuss today in closed doors is we've asked legal counsel to start preparing a draft 28E that could be used in moving forward with a regional governance model with suburban entities. That 28E is in a draft form, and we would discuss that in closed session. We would also likely review some financial modeling that's been done that would be part of that discussion as well. And in my opinion, and feel free to jump in with yours if it's different, talking about financial modeling is clearly a negotiating item and is important that we do have a discussion like that in a closed session. So it's really those two items that we would discuss in this. If anybody wants to add to that or ask questions about that, please do now, and then I'll seek a motion. Okay, so I'm not hearing anything to be added. So I believe, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, that the motion I'm seeking is a motion to go into a closed section under our session under section 388.91 of the Code of Iowa to discuss marketing and pricing strategies and proprietary information that may impact its competitive position, our competitive position by public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors related to ongoing negotiations over creating an integrated regional water authority. Is that an appropriate motion, Rick?
Yes, with respect to the items that you mentioned, which are the first two items listed in the board's yellow sheet.
Excellent. Is there a motion to that effect?
I will make that motion. So moved. I can repeat all of that if needed, but I think you
I think we've
said it well.
I think we've got it. Is there a second?
Second.
And before Michelle records the vote, for those that are listening, we anticipate going into this closed session. We will come back out of this closed session. There will not be any further action or discussion following our closed session. So feel free to sign off, but as I said, we will not take any further action. So with that being said, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go into closed session, which means we're going to go switch to our Microsoft Teams meeting, and then we'll come back to this to gavel out. So feel free to sign out of Zoom now and into your Microsoft Teams meeting.
I'm gonna test my sound real quick.
Sounded good to me, Michelle.
Thank you.
I get used to the different change screens. Yeah, they're all just a little bit different. Allow me just 1 minute of intro here. I will set the stage a little for the two presentations. And I think clearly this is an important decision that the board is going to make and not to do this in the future. And I believe that it's our role as staff to provide the board tools that you need to make that decision. And we've got clearly financial implications here that need to be considered. I think we have an equity and fairness component for our direct retail customers that we have to consider and make sure that whatever deal we enter into is fair and equitable. We have a philosophical question. We have to make sure that we all philosophically believe that this is the right thing to do. And frankly, we have a political perspective. We need to be able to sell this, not only to our retail customers, help them understand this is the right thing to do, a good thing to do. And so that being the case, we're looking for tools to be board members can use to become comfortable in all of those areas. The 2080 agreement, I think, is laying out to become a very effective tool to help us all understand that this is going to be a fair and equitable bill for everyone, not just only total service customers, but the detail in there has really helped crystallize this to me. Also, from a philosophical perspective, as you start looking through this document, you start to think, okay, this is how this is going to work, and this is what it's going to talk about, this is what we want to do, or maybe it's not. And then I hope also from a political perspective, this will be a tool for us to use to help bring others along, help them understand this is what we are doing, whether they ultimately decide it's right or wrong, at least to help them understand. That's what the 2080 I think is going to give us.
Can I just chime in on the 2080, just as we think about today's discussion? My idea today is I don't expect any of us, any board member, to feel like this is your only shot at 2080. I mean, really the purpose of this discussion is to start getting you familiar with the layout, the work that Rick and the staff have done, and have you start thinking about the concepts in each section. Today, we're not gonna decide, you know, the number of governing members or any. We're not getting in the weeds like that. The purpose really is to get you that have a discussion and have some high-level questions about the format and where this is heading, knowing that later you're going to have it. We all are going to have the opportunity to dig real deep and make the decisions we have to make. This is just this meeting is a way to kind of introduce us to this and to see if there's any glaring changes that we want to make in format more than substance.
That's a great point, Graham. We don't anticipate that anyone has read the 60-plus page document at this point, but there's a great table of contents, and Rick and his folks have set it up so that you can hyperlink to the sections as you're reading the table of contents. You can jump to a section you may be interested in to make sure it says what you think it says, to make sure you're comfortable with that, to make sure your concerns are addressed in the document. So,
or even broader than that, knowing that there's going to be a section so you can begin to formulate those questions for a later date. I mean, that may be the case. Right. Begin thinking about the concepts.
Because all the sections are not.
Right.
So just for clarification, nobody is necessarily seen this 2080.
Right.
Nobody, Rick and I obviously submit, but Graham got a preview the other day of a slightly less complete version, but that's it.
Okay.
Staff here has.
So, and I think, and Andrea, that's a fair question. That's why we wanted to do it this way. I think we need to begin, again, conceptually, we agree with kind of the structure, and then we can begin to fill in those blanks, and then there'll be a point where we start bringing other people on.
I would not say this is ready for release by outside parties. At point of order, I see that there's something that the guests, participants, that doesn't mean we have an outsider on that.
No, everyone who is outside of Waterworks has guests behind them.
I'm looking at the participants, I'm making a list of record, and there's something called listed guests, but I'm assuming that's not a person. I can't find that specific reference. I'm looking at the participants and the board, you and John, myself, Michelle. Okay.
Just, it looks like Kyle Danley's not going.
Kyle is.
Yeah, I don't know who he is. It's not on my screen. Maybe that's Michelle.
Michelle Watson.
I should be an MW.
You're an MW, I see a J, always belongs to John Landy, and then I see just a B.
He is a boy.
Yeah.
It's not Andrea? Oh, she's got her camera on.
Diana
seeing 11. Yeah, I see 11.
I see 11.
I think I,
You click on guest, it says, here is what this app can do, send instant messages to receive instant messages.
I think it's not a person. I think you're right. I think it's just a capability of some kind. I'm sorry to have caused that confusion. I think we have 11 participants. I think we've identified them all. If it's in order for me to just kind of present draft 2080, yeah, I think that's great. I just want, right before you do that, is everybody comfortable with the process, what we're doing with the 2080 today? Yes. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to try and share my screen as that document. And people can tell me if they see it. That would be helpful. Yes.
There. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I do see it.
Diane, if you change your view, you might be able to see it. Oh, you have the right hand first.
Rick did email that to you too, Diane, if you want to look at email.
Let me just pull it up. I don't know why I.
Yeah, I think the user face is a little different for those of us logged in on a browser. I don't have on this particular laptop, so I'm my browser, but I can see it. I don't know.
That's okay, I'll just pull it up.
Go ahead, Rick, and she'll get that pulled up in a minute. Okay, well, I'm going to scroll through it here a little bit. Before I kind of walk through at a very high level, I want to say that the objectives for the 2080 agreement are, first of all, to meet the legal requirements for an entity and an agreement under Chapter 2080 and 28F. The 2080 authorizing and sharing powers, and 28F implementing the ability to issue bonds on top of a 2080 entity. The agreement also creates and charters the new entity, and it also is intended to document the deal that's being made, to make some provisions permanent, but also provide some flexibility for evolution of the activity and the entity over time. And there are quite a number of them. Optional legal clauses like providing for arbitration. And last but not least, set forth the governance provisions and the governing structure for the new entity. I'll get into some of the details of the structure and governance, but let me say first, this document started with the 28 RA. That went through some shearing and some modification in reference to Council Paul Gray, who was engaged by the early on. I took that work product and working with Ted and with others, we evolved it from there to create what you have now in front of you. If you have the Word document in front of you, you want to go to a particular section, what you need to do is hit Control and then click, and it'll take you to the place. Article 1 is a general provision that sets forth
Give Sue just a minute to come back.
There we go.
There we go. Sue's back. We are coming out of our closed session. It is February the 23rd, meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. We've made no decisions or taken any votes of any kind in closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
So-
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.